If an organization understands that a brand is a strategic asset that can be utilized for decision making, then you're really onto something, and then you're becoming a brand-driven organization. But if you just believe that it's a marketing fluff or a color, then you will never become brand-driven. But if you can think about it.
Hello everyone, welcome to Activate London. I'm here with Sara Riis-Carstensen, and we just heard an amazing keynote about brand development, what's important in branding. And Sara, you just did such an amazing job out there. But maybe you can just tell our audience a little bit about your background, what you do for a living, and you know what drives you.
Yeah, so I work with brands, and brands is my passion. I like to bring brands into a strategic level, so moving brands from merely being a logo or design, but to being something more, being a strategic component in organizations' decision making.
And your resume is pretty tremendous. Maybe you can just tell everyone the brands that you have worked for in your career.
I worked for Lego, Carlsberg, De Beers, Giorgio Armani, Zurich Insurance, and today I'm heading up brand at Lufthansa Group, which is Lufthansa, Swiss, Austrian, Brussels, and a whole portfolio of different brands.
And there's probably a lot of listeners out there who aspire to work with these brands. Like, what is it that you look for in brands to work for? What kind of culture to allow you to do what you do?
I like a challenge, and I like to see how I can actually make a change when I work with brands. Yeah. When I joined Lego, Lego was not a company that people actually really wanted to work for. And today I think Lego is probably one of the companies everybody wants to work for. So I like to join brands and become part of a transformation and put my mark on brands.
At the end of the day, I feel that brand is about, it's a connection, right? Like, it's not a logo. I mean, I don't think you mentioned logos that entire time, which is actually interesting because a lot of people think it's design, but it is about like the connection you're creating with your customer and the world, and then everything else comes from that. You know,
But I think often when you speak to management, they think a brand can be contained to the logo and colors.
Yeah.
And that's very often it's part of it, and in all my roles I've also been responsible for design, because it's also through the design that you can make the brand come alive. So how do you translate your values and your identity into design? So it's part of it, but the big shift is also in making sure that brand becomes part of strategy.
Yes.
If an organization understands that a brand is a strategic asset that can be utilized for decision making, then you're really onto something, and then you're becoming a brand-driven organization. But if you just believe that it's a marketing fluff or a color, then you will never become brand-driven. But if you can think about applying it as part of your group strategy, as your platform for decision-making, and it can be very difficult because sometimes organizations are like, well, this is a super good business opportunity, and the brand person would say, well, it doesn't fit with what we want to stand for. The strong organization would then say, no, it doesn't fit to what we stand for, so it might be a good business opportunity, let's find something else instead.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. It's basically like you have an outcome first. Like it's the idea is like design is the last thing. That is just, and it's just design is one manifestation. I think a lot of people who are not as familiar feel like it's the only thing, but it's really just one core component. You know, another thing taking from your talk, you speak a lot about how the brand needs to drive the product, which is interesting. You know, it's like, maybe talk a little bit about that, you know, because you talked about that with Lego and even you know, Airbnb and the like.
Yeah, I think you need to innovate, and all brands need to innovate, and companies need to innovate products. But you need to use some kind of your foundation and your belief when you do product innovation. So if, let's say, you want to bring a physical product into the digital world, how can that fit naturally with whom you are and what you want to stand for?
Yeah. You know, maybe, you know, there's a lot of And I'm sure our audience is you mentioned one of our customers, a couple of our customers. Blue Bottle Coffee is one of Iterable's customers, but there's a lot of customers of Iterable that are large, some are small. Maybe you can walk through your process again a little bit about how you advise any company to think through what's the most important thing for their brand.
I think asking yourself that key question, what would the world miss if you didn't exist tomorrow? I think that can really force you to stay focused, and it can force you to realize what you want to stand for and whom you want to cater for. And I know it can be difficult because often when you work with brands, you will have 50 different opinions from senior leaders across the organization who thinks, X, Y, Z. But at the end of the day, you really need to answer that core question about whom you are and what is your mark in the world. Yeah. We are exposed to so many brands every single day. And we couldn't care less about many of the brands we're exposed to. But then there are those few brands, those iconic brands that you truly love, and you would be like, I can't live without this brand. And that's sort of way we need to force ourselves as businesses.
Do you think that every brand can get to an answer on that? That's...
I think it's a very good question. You need to think about how you add value to your customers. As I said, I've worked with insurance as well. Building one of the world's biggest insurance brands. People don't like insurance. People actually dislike insurance, and they operate in what's called a sea of sameness. Customers can't really distinguish one insurance provider from the other. But if you can think about how you add value as a brand throughout their customer lifetime, then you're onto something. And then customers don't forget you or get annoyed by paying the premium, but they actually start seeing value in whom you are.
I 100% agree. Maybe you can tell our audience who are focused on digital engagement and the like, how should they think about brand as something to embrace, something to help impact?
I think when you engage with your customers, you need to use the tone of voice and whom you are as a brand. But I also see more and more brands starting to engage in not just communities that the brands have built themselves, but also engaging with different worlds. So how can you as a brand then act on the terms of the different worlds that you're engaging in? Not just thinking about you are being the center of attention as a brand, but really, really having empathy, because it is a matter of empathy, especially when you're engaging on consumers' terms and conditions.
Yeah. When you start thinking about AI, and especially on the design side, even though design is only a piece of how you think about brand, what impact is that going to have on the world of brand? Or what impact is it having today on the world of brand?
I think there is a huge opportunity with AI if we talk about, let's say, brand design. I mean, if we can get to a stage where we can prompt AI to understand brand guidelines, understand what we want to stand for as a brand, then there's huge opportunities in what we can actually spread out when it comes to both marketing but also design in a completely different way. I mean, if you think about design today, you have a PowerPoint template and nobody knows how to use that PowerPoint template and their logo. But if we can use AI to actually prompt how to bring brand guidelines to life, then I think AI is actually a huge opportunity for brands.
So it can help activate brand and have governance as well.
Yes.
On a larger population.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite AI tool?
ChatGPT.
And do you use it professionally as you work?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I use it every single day.
Yeah.
Sometimes just for simple things like, you also quickly become lazy with ChatGPT,
sure.
like, make this sound professional.
Yes. We all
and
do
here
that.
It is. So,
with AI is raising the average, and what you said, is that going to change the way you work? right? Like not just on the activation, but just like how do you brilliance is going to, change over time,
Definitely AI will really rise the average of whatever outcome we produce as brand marketeers. And here I think there will also be a lot of jobs that will be probably redundant in the future. But here I really think creative problem-solving skills are super key.
Yeah.
Because creativity, thinking outside the box, is still not something I believe AI can do for us. And here I think the way we engage teams, the way we build our teams and develop teams with different skills, here creative thinking is definitely a skill set that I think is important for the future.
Right, and being able to problem solve versus more information.
Exactly.
And just elevation. Going back to, once you find out for your brand, if it went away, what would the world miss? What is the next step? Again, a bit of a tutorial here for companies that want brands like you work for. What's the next thing you do once you find out, okay, this is what the world needs in my brand?
I like to see brands a little bit like a person. And you can say, okay, if you were to describe your brand like you would describe a person, how would this person talk? How would it behave? How would it smile to you? What would it do in these and these situations? What would be this brand's or this person's opinion about different things? I think as brands, you need to stand for something. And if you don't stand for something, you don't stand for anything. And that also means having an opinion. And having an opinion very often also about political matters. Maybe you don't want that, but without having a statement, then you're also taking an opinion.
Yeah.
It can be very difficult in conservative big organizations, but I believe the future brands need to have an opinion and a way of thinking about many different topics, especially in the macro environment.
Yeah, no, and having an opinion about what your company does. I mean, one of the things you call out is like Lego almost went out of business because it tried to do everything, and that focus is so important. And then, so a question: did the product decision to focus on, the block? Did that come first and then brand came second, or did it happen together?
So when we asked ourselves that question, what would the world miss if Lego was gone tomorrow? It was not action figures, it was not jewelry, it was a brick. But what is the starting point of the brick? And how can you use that then for product? Right. So you define that starting point, because what is the brick actually? The brick is creativity, it's imagination, it's quality. So you can use, and in this sense, the product was probably driving, or that key product was probably driving the brand decision, but it was also the philosophy around what the brick can do that sort of forced what is the core of the brand. So it's a little bit of a fluid process here, and today that is really the starting point for any decision making.
Right on, that's good. All right, last question. And this is somewhat of a loaded question, right? But what brand that you currently don't work for inspires you?
So there's one little brand, I don't even know who owns it, but it's called Sporty and Rich. I don't know, do you know it? No, it's a brand, but they somehow caught me on Instagram. So they are creating casual apparel, and they put it in different settings, like from the 80s and the 90s, but always with a beautiful bag, and they're just creating this lifestyle brand. I think it's a fairly small brand. And then the way they do the price tag with a little note on how to take care of the brand, those details of the brand, I'm super inspired about.
Yeah. Well, Sara, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here at Activate and being part of our community. And thank you for bringing such beauty and life to all the brands that you interact with.
Thank you
so
for
much.
having me.
Bye-bye.